So Phase 2 has been nearly out for 2 months now, and it's very likely that Phase 3 will drop at some point in the middle of April or towards the end of it. And you're probably wondering, what will Phase 3 entail? Well, there have been minor leaks and data mined information in which we can make some pretty decent educated guesses. A new raid is more or less confirmed, and a recent email survey Blizzard sent out hints that PvE content in SOD could change forever. We have a lot to cover in this video, including our little drama section, and also we'll be taking a look at how the meta has totally shifted in Gnomeregan this week. By the way guys, if you're still kind of on the fence about purchasing the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, I made a very thorough and in-depth review which actually took me a good 12 hours to make. This is on my second channel, I'll leave it linked in the description and in a pinned comment. In my humble opinion, I think the YouTube algorithms do me a little bit dirty on this one, so I would really appreciate the help. It's very likely that the new raid will be Sunken Temple, but what evidence do we actually have for this? Well, the datamined PTR shows that the lockout in Sunken Temple has been changed to a 3-day lockout, plus its instance ID has been changed to the number 23. Before you think I'm Jim Carrey and I'm going to get totally deranged by a strange book that I purchased in a secondhand bookshop, this is relevant, I do promise you, because BFD was number 21 and Gnomeregan was 22. Websites have highlighted how the player cap has been increased to 10 man, but they're technically wrong. You see, ST already had a player cap of 10, like many Vanilla WoW dungeons did, and Blizzard have confirmed that the next raid will be a 20 man. So I don't think the next phase is going to have 2 raids, a 20 man and a 10 man. I personally think that's fairly unlikely. I think we're just going to get a 20 man Sunken Temple. Another detail that makes me think Sunken Temple is most likely is how Blizzard have said they wanted to draw attention to some of the more underrated instances. ST definitely fits this bill. Also, for lore reasons, it kind of very nicely ties in to the Stranglethorn PvP event. Maybe because we have, empowered the Blood God Hakar by getting killed by the world boss Kadumi. We have somehow contributed to a rise in power within Sunken Temple, therefore justifying a need for us to go in there and sort it out. Most people probably had never bothered with the secret puzzle boss in Sunken Temple. I mean, it's probably easier to stop a vegan lecturing you about processed meat than coordinating a vanilla World of Warcraft dungeon team. Because this boss did require you to do some funky stuff with the snake statues on the balconies in a specific order to summon Atalarion, a boss with a huge health pool and a nasty knockback. There was also another secret boss, the Avatar Havakar, that needed a questline completed in order to defeat him. This was actually a fairly difficult endurance fight because you had to survive for so long against these waves of Hakari Bloodkeepers. It'll be interesting to see if they keep the gimmick elements to these bosses in the raid with their current pre-requirements. My theory is that in Phase 3, the STV PvP event boss will become easier to kill and drop something required to summon the Avatar of Hakar. There's also a slight indication that heroic dungeons or heroic pluses will be coming to SOD. Blizzard recently sent out one of their email surveys, and it contained this question: how important are heroic plus or Titan rune dungeons to you in Season of Discovery? They have also hinted that they are thinking about adding more difficulty modes in interviews, and I think it's very likely, to be honest, because it seems like the next logical step. Providing players with more difficult 5-man content keeps us adequately challenged throughout every phase release. It just makes sense. It keeps the old content fun and relevant, although I don't think this will come next phase. I think it will come Phase 4 or Phase 5. There have also been a number of interesting data mine class runes in the latest PTR build. Blizzard tell us to take these with a pinch of salt, but most runes that got data mined do actually end up becoming a reality. Do not overestimate Blizzard's competency to conceal and encrypt information on future content updates on their PTRs, because they have zero competency in doing this. But anyway, let's talk about the most interesting. So Mage have a new cast ability that's called Balefire Bolt, and it is similar to Arcane Blast, but you lose spirit on every stack rather than, the increased mana consumption, and then when you reach 0 spirit, you actually die. Deep Freeze and Molten Armor map again added, and there's a new maneuverability buff to Blink that allows you to teleport back to the original location you casted Blink within 10 seconds of casting it, and it reset to the cooldown. New Warlock runes are Summon Felguard, Pandemic, Backdraft, Unstable Affliction and Immolation Aura, but these were datamined to be in the Phase 2 PTR, so I'm not sure whether we're going to get these ones. There's a Spreece rune called Despair that hints that we might be getting crit on dots. There's also this ability called Vozone. It's basically a bit similar to a Death Knight's Death and Decay. Rogue may be getting Honor Amongst Thieves along with some new runes to increase their energy regen. Druid may be finally getting a solid AoE ability in form of Gale Winds that increases the hurricane damage and removes the cooldown. Hunters might be getting something new called Focus Fire where they can consume a pet's frenzy stacks to increase their own ranged attack speed. Or it might be getting Taste of Blood. If you don't know, this is a proc that allows your overpower to be usable on Rentix. For Paladin there's Purifying Power, allowing you to use Exorcism and Holy Wrath on any target, and this should be a really big buff to them. They may also get their Wrath cooldown. So some seem reasonable and others seem a little wacky and far-fetched, but only time will tell if any of these runes do actually make it to the release. But don't worry, I didn't forget about the spicy drama section. It seems there's a new bot hustle for Horde gold farmers as they can't farm stockades. Instead, Horde are fishing squid in the hinterlands. This makes actually quite a lot of sense. You only need to get level 5 to get started, and you can make a decent amount of gold even now because people are buying these in preparation for Phase 3. Plus, fishing bots are much easier to set up in comparison to full-on farming bots. The grilled squid recipe for the 10 agility food buff isn't actually learnable yet, but the reason why people can make money on this is because they are stockpiling it for Phase 3 release. This will become the most desired food buff in the game. My guess also is that they are laundering their stock of the squid to accounts that they don't use for bots so that they don't lose their stock. But right now I have actually been told by gold sellers that the ban climate is kind of good for botters, likely to the mass firings initiated by Microsoft. Bots are able to farm 18 hours a day for a good month without getting banned, whereas previously they were getting banned within 2 weeks. However, this is actually some positive news on this topic for once. Many gold sellers have been telling me how many bots are actually losing their functionality. They just simply have stopped working. This leads me to believe that Blizzard are actually making an effort to introduce better anti-cheat methods or better scripting to essentially prevent these bots from working, and stricter restrictions on people who make add-ons when it comes to Lua scripting. Now, the meta has definitely shifted. Enhancement have climbed to become the second best DPS up with the mage. And actually, if you look at higher percentiles, you'll actually see that enhancement is actually pumping more than most other classes on most fights. Warlock, still a very strong S tier class. Hunter, Ellie and Warrior are comfortably in A tier. That's melee Hunter, by the way. For some reason, Shadow Priest absolutely fell off a cliff, and the Ret Paladin is climbing a little bit to be at the top of B tier, becoming a much more viable DPS to bring to groups. And unfortunately, Druid, just still a bit of a meh middle of the pack class right now. Now let's take a little look at the top 3 speedruns right now for Gnomeregan. The times now, well, world record now is 15:17. And the third spot from my guild, by the way, who shout out because this is an extremely impressive run, 15:49. So when we're looking at comps, they are quite interesting. One thing that is consistent across all the runs is a Warlock tank. That makes absolute sense. They do great damage, and they're also great at killing the bombs on the last boss. What's interesting though is we have talked about how a Shadow Priest, for instance, is underperforming, yet there's 2 Shadow Priests in the world record run. And obviously my educated guess about this is boss DPS is important in a speedrun, but there's a lot more that goes into a speedrun than just boss DPS and killing bosses quick. A big part of it is obviously killing trash mobs quickly, and Shadow Priests are pretty good at doing that. This is also a very caster heavy group. Usually caster heavy groups are a little bit of a problem in speedruns because obviously of mana regeneration. We do have 2 shamans here providing shamanistic rage, which is very overpowered for speedruns. In fact, let me show you how much mana regeneration it actually provides in a run. I mean, just look at the raw gains here of mana acquired throughout the run, and a big portion of this is coming from shamanistic raid, pretty much ensuing that Horde are the dominant faction right now for speedruns. One funny thing about this run also is how DPS are actually healing more than the actual healers. It seems to me that the meta strat for speedruns currently is 1. Stack shamans for shamanistic rage, 2. Get a caster heavy group, because let's be honest, they are just pumping more DPS and particularly more AoE DPS on trash, which is best for speedruns, and also get some DPS that can provide healing while simultaneously dealing damage. By the way guys, if you are actually looking to pass more in Gnomeregan, I have recently made a very in-depth boss by boss passing guide that is for members only. And if you subscribe to the channel, you can get a little preview of that video before you consider joining the channel as a member. But anyway, until my next video, ciao.